Okay.
Recording in progress.
Okay, this is the March meeting of the Sanville Fire Commission. On to order at 4:02 p.m. Welcome, everybody. This being my last meeting, it's a privilege to be meeting in the Public Safety Center for the first time. And first time for an in-person meeting since, COVID started a couple of years back at least. So, do we have any public member? I'm not, other than Dr. Misrock, who's not regarded as public exactly. Remember the.
Sorry, real quick, Donna is on as an attendee. Just want to make sure everyone knows that, not a panelist. So I don't know if she could speak unless moved into panelist.
Is she online?
Is she on? She is online. Aha.
Yeah.
Okay.
Online
See
and
her
via
online.
text.
Usually would come up on the right.
Yeah, so we could normally click on her name and make her a panelist.
Participants.
There we go.
I don't see her name up. Is that it? Yes, Donna.
Here we are with all kinds of new technology.
Hey, Donna, can you hear us?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
That's great. Yes, we can.
Excellent.
Right.
Okay, good. Thank you, Nadine.
You're welcome.
Take that one.
Right.
Take this one over.
Well, that's good, but.
Good to see you, man. 3 years. I know, it's crazy. Long time.
Hey, you man.
It's good to see you face to face.
Okay, you too. No, we are in session, Tom.
Dang, I'm missing the Tom hugs.
Sorry, guys.
All right. Now we're getting down to business. It looks like we don't have any member of the public.
Say hi, everybody. Sorry. Good to see everybody.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi.
Look at you, virtual.
Oh, the novelty of big changes in a formal setting. Everybody had a chance to review the minutes. Do I have any changes?
I'll move to adopt.
Second.
All in favor?
Hi.
One thing, let me make sure that we are on the right track. Ken, I have you down as being responsible for the minutes for this meeting. Cool. So you are the note taker. Okay, we have unanimous approval of the minutes. Last time around, we have a report from the Fire Foundation.
We do. So first and foremost, the Class A grant program that was provided to the Fire Foundation from Captain Kyle Kleinsmith was voted on and approved for a 1-year grant. They did not want to commit to an ongoing perpetual grant, but it was approved for the first year as we discussed at last month's commission meeting. So that's a go. Lynn Thompson has also developed a winter newsletter that I believe you should all be getting a copy of as well. So that's now happening to try and promote the foundation. And then the big excitement is that they're looking to restart the crab feed because that was the major fundraiser for the foundation. And so our Chief Darren White has volunteered to help jumpstart it along with Len Thompson. And I know that they're working on getting that going forward again. And the problem is that the firefighter who was instrumental in making the event happen in a very big way has since retired. So it's going to take a groundswell to get it going again, but that is the hope and expectation. And that's all,
Okay.
folks.
Question, Donna, how many Class A uniforms are you going to be able to provide?
It actually isn't a Class A, forgive me. The class, I misspoke. The Class A uniforms were approved to be in place for another year. And only one firefighter has requested them at this juncture. And the request from Captain Kyle Kleinschmidt was in regards to the grant for the schools to promote people going on to college, and the foundation would kick into that, but it wouldn't necessarily be tied to becoming a firefighter. So Class A uniform purchases were approved for another year, but there'd been such a lack of requests for them that it was under review. Was it even worthwhile in continuing it? And the discussion was decided it was a yes.
My guess is that as the word spreads, you're going to get more requests. Is pretty much the way that works.
And what I've done in the past, is actually send out reminders to everyone that the program exists. And those who have a need, please reach out. And so I can send another email out back to the troops. We've got a few more new hires. I think I did it once those new hires joined, but a reminder for them wouldn't hurt.
Yeah, yeah. And, you know, in some cases, it takes a while for them to sort of get their feet on the ground and find out where the restroom is and you know, all of those things. Last thing they're thinking about in a lot of cases is, I need a Class A unit. But it'll happen. Okay, anything else,
Can I
Donna?
say one thing on the, Kyle Kleinschmidt has promoted and proposed a scholarship for students in Marin County, San Rafael especially. And people who are aimed towards a public safety career, fire, police, whatever. So he brought the proposal to the Fire Foundation. It sounded great. I mean, we love it. But the question was, does that fit our mandate of serving the firefighters? So we struggle a little bit with, is this right in our wheelhouse or is this sort of peripheral? So, but we thought as a goodwill gesture, since the firefighters want to do this, we would fund 1 year and then look at it and reconsider it. But it could get expensive if you did it every year. And
Yeah.
since we haven't had the crab feed, our resources haven't been, our groundwater has not been replenished as much as we've had in past years.
Yeah, I can appreciate that, yeah. And the growth factor in terms of cost could really be a prohibiting.
Anyway, we're a catalyst. We'll do it for a year and see how it turns out.
Okay.
So it's a test project, would you call it? Or
Well, it's a new program. We wanted to support it, but we urged Kyle to try to find funding from other sources too, foundations, companies, other ways that he might seek sources for a very good idea, a scholarship that encourages people to go into public safety.
And the San Rafael Firefighters Association would be
They're the
the
promoters.
active component of that.
It's their program with support from the Fire Foundation and any other support they can get.
Okay, that sounds like a great idea. Okay, anything else on the Fire Foundation before we move on? I note that the item that used to be on the agenda for the historic subcommittee has now been removed. There really has not been much going on for the last 6 months or so at least. I have a couple of things that I brought today to contribute. I'm going to pass them on. I'll pass them around first. And when they get to the chief, he can keep them. Some of these, I think, some of you have seen before. This is kind of some old patent applications. This is just historical and not really associated with the San Rafael department at all. But I have 3 booklets that were the property of my predecessor and Dr. Mizrock's predecessor as chair of the San Rafael Fire Commission. Chuck Daniels, who was an arson investigator for San Rafael and for the county for many years. One of them is Handbook of Arson and Sabotage Investigation. And these are old documents, real old documents. I have scanned them, so I have digital copies, but these are the originals. The other one is a suggested fire prevention ordinance, which was incorporated, parts of it were incorporated into San Rafael's ordinance structure. And the third is a little pamphlet entitled "What Firemen Should Know and Practice in the Matter of Detection and Suppression of Incendiary Fires." Incendiary fires are, by definition, term of art in the investigation field, intentionally set. And the other one is an interesting little fire department pumper tests and fire stream tables. So interesting from a historical perspective. Chuck Daniels was quite an investigator, and at some time in the past, I dug out some of his old investigation reports, including the Mar Vista fire, which two San Rafael firefighters died when a roof collapsed. So hopefully this stuff can get incorporated in some way into the historical record of the department. Okay, and keeping with my past tradition, I'm going to ask for reports starting with Nadine.
All right, thank you. And I am so sorry I can't be there in person. I had every intention to, so this will have to do for now. Two things. One, Chief, I'm not trying to make extra work for anyone on your team, but I ran into something on social media, and it was basically the Fire Association posting some pulse point activity, which we all have access to. And it was essentially them saying, we had a really busy night, and they most absolutely did. And I thought to myself, wow, how interesting would it be for the Fire Commission to see those types of metrics on a monthly basis? Because as we're out with our community members, our next door neighbors, things like that, and we hear people say things, we can actually have data that says, no, actually, that's not how that works, or yes, it is, or, you know, whatever it is. And I wouldn't want it to be reinventing the wheel or creating work, but if there is already something that shows, you know, firefighters had 127 calls, which was the highest, you know, in a month since 1972. I don't know, I'm making this stuff up, but I don't know if you get to see things like that. And I was wondering if, you know, you do, that it could be something that's shared with us, because it would be a really interesting metric. And then the second thing is, of course, just thinking about my time with our chair and how wonderful it's been and how sad it's going to be to not have you as part of our Fire Commission. I remember when I first started over 5 years ago, Chair Luckham said, let me take you out to coffee and tell you a little bit about how this works. And so we met at Pete's, and it was absolutely wonderful. I learned the difference between a fire engine and a fire truck, and later told my husband about it. And my child, my 5-year-old child, now knows the difference, which I love, and all sorts of other things. But that one just really stuck out. So I am really going to miss being on the Fire Commission with you and seeing, case in point, the dedication and commitment and passion that you bring to the work that our firefighters do. I wish that these are the reasons where I wish that people could stay on longer. Same with Steve, so that we can benefit from the dedication and commitment. But thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Can I answer her question about the?
Go ahead.
monthly?
Yeah.
Hi, Nadine. Thanks for that info or that request. I normally get the information on an annual basis, but we're looking to adjust. And I'll look to get updated reports that I can share with you guys at every monthly report. So you can kind of get a sense of what's going on with our calls, and or if there's any unusual incident, I'll make sure I add that in I sometimes already do that in the report, but I don't put the call volume in, but just for our own awareness, the department had almost 12,000 runs this past calendar year, so the numbers are steadily increasing, as you can see. I think we're somewhere in the neighborhood of 11,700 plus, so. But it would be great to actually provide this to you guys on a monthly basis, because it'll help me track it instead of at the end of the year as we move through the year. So thank you for the suggestion.
Yeah, thank you. And hats off to the team. And I also want to emphasize, just because the numbers are getting, I don't want to see the numbers get greater. I want to see them get shorter, because that too means that we're doing a really good job doing other things like, prevention. So, but it would be really a great metric to see. And I appreciate the work that everyone does so much. We hear the sirens, but it's often, you really don't know unless, you see something like that, that's like a picture of pulse point. That's like 1211, 132, 315. It's like, yep, they're on there. They're out there. So thank you.
I'll throw a question out to the group. How many of you follow Pulse Point? When you hear the siren, you bring up Pulse Point and see what's going on?
Yep. And look, how close is it to me?
Yeah,
Really?
yeah.
I didn't know that.
I did just the other night.
I do as well, and only once, the incident that just happened to be a couple blocks down the street, I couldn't resist, and I walked down to see what was going on.
We're doing a structure fire right now. It came in at 3:33.
So I was going to comment to Nadine. I had the same thought, and I actually said to Chief White that I love Hot Shots because it's giving us those stats on a monthly basis. Chief, are we talking about the same stats that you're posting in Hot Shots?
I'm not sure that Chief Senate has been posting our monthly call volume or run volume in Hot Shot.
Oh, call log. Okay. Yeah, because Nadine, I do look at the Hot Shots, and I told the chief I'm in shock as that the paramedic calls are always 2 times or more than the actual fire calls.
Yeah,
More than that,
the
yeah.
reality of it is that the vast majority of the calls these days are not fire calls. The vast majority are medical or citizen assist type calls. And for lots of reasons, the details of those are not public. But it would be interesting to know what at least, proportionally, the fact that the call comes in the middle of the night, and the guys are up running, still means they're missing sleep, and it may not be a fire call, but it might be one after another, a medical call that are pretty taxing.
I have one question, Chief. Is there anything that the department is doing to assess the success of that prevention program that we discussed? I think I shared, there's an article in the IJ about it. It might have been 2 meetings ago, which is aimed at preventing a lot of those medical calls that are from repeat callers.
Right.
Is there any study of that to see how well that program is?
I think what's happening currently is, well, if you recall, there was the Direct Connect program that launched prior to the pandemic. That got shelved because of the pandemic, but what's resurfacing now is being driven in part by SRPD, which is called an alternative response team. And that alternative response team is going to have someone with an EMT background paired up with someone with more of a clinician or nursing background and a potential psychology background. They're going to go out on some of these calls that may be the high frequency call for those individuals who may not really truly need EMS services, but need some other connective services. So we're hoping to see some downward adjustment in people accessing the 911 system and our transport units. In part with that, and in part, we have an EMS study taking place right now. Citygate and Associates are going to bring about information that will help us kind of look at what we're doing well, what we may be able to do differently. And that could involve a modification in perhaps how we deploy an ALS unit, or maybe we deploy a BLS unit in its place as an example. But the alternative response team in this EMS study is going to further inform what we can be doing better in the future. So.
Yeah, and I think it's all around, that's a much better idea to have that sort of response, because in an awful lot of cases, you know, it's somebody that is reaching out, not necessarily for, as the chief says, for medical care or what have you. They just, you know, need to have somebody pay attention to them and being what it is. Okay. Tom. You're
Well,
next.
I'll echo Nadine's story. I remember when I started 6, 8 years ago, meeting with Larry over at Lake Crescent or something over in the canal. I can't remember. And they took me to all the stations and I met all the firefighters and it was very eye-opening. So thank you very much. It was a great experience. And then just on I guess a fire related note, I'm an Indian law attorney, so I wear many different hats. One of the hats I wear is as a tribal prosecutor for a tribe up in Oregon. I just got a case today where a woman allegedly burned down her home. And so I'm charging her with arson and I'll have to figure out how I'm gonna prove all that, but I just thought it was, you know, odd or interesting. So maybe I'll call Larry, get some pointers on
Well,
on arson.
There's a great manual.
so that's the investigation part. That interesting because arson is different than intentional burning.
Oh,
Intentional burning under California law might happen when you burn down your own house. And it might not
that's it, because that's what the woman did. She burned down her own
burn
house.
down your own house. Well, it's interesting because if she owned it outright
She did.
and there was no financial, now you're maybe looking at unlawful burning without a permit.
Ah,
Rather than-
okay.
Well,
Call you.
Consideration. The question also becomes, was she looking to make an insurance claim somehow?
Yeah, exactly.
It's bad spirits in the house.
Oh,
Yeah.
well,
The
so.
wrinkle is, one of the
Yeah.
firefighters,
See, then-
one of the firefighters slipped on ice and impaled his hand. So he had to go to the hospital, and so the feds may get involved in prosecutor in federal court too for something.
Yeah, well, the crime of arson and the things that are related,
So arson is burning somebody else's property. I haven't even looked yet.
yeah, now we're getting into, yeah.
I'll look it up. Anyway,
And it,
I know who to ask, but you know.
and it's, you know, you're talking about tribal land, tribal
Yeah.
law, so. You know,
Yeah,
Oregon law.
no Oregon law, yeah.
Anyway, so,
So yeah, with that, but otherwise things are good and knock on wood, although my older son has been home with COVID for the last 4 or 5 days. So I haven't really seen him in 5 days. He's been up in his room. But he went to school today. He's testing negative now. So it's still out there, still going around. So hence the mask, but
Yes.
I remind people, no, it's still there. So anyway, but that's all I had, Larry. Thank you.
okay, Ken.
I never got to go out to lunch with them because they were currently dead, right? So, but still, he's always been very kind to me and given me pointers, so. Thank you. You know, what Nadine was talking about brought something to mind, and I've been thinking about this. I was thinking about this. I went down to Florida, Palm Beach Gardens, Florida, to see this, this factory. It's 4 miles from the ocean, right? And it's a giant factory. They have about $286 million worth of values in that factory. And it's ground zero for a hurricane event, right? And so when I was there, I happened to had the fortune of being with a Zurich insurance company engineer. Guy's previous history was with Factory Mutual. So they're the cream of the crop. This guy's a 35-year-old vet or 35-year vet. And I just watched him go through the process of evaluating this factory. And what I saw there, and it kind of comes full circle, just bear with me for a second, but like all the windows in the factory were built to take a Cat 3 hurricane, Cat 3 windstorm. Everything on the roof was not only bolted down, but strapped down again to take a Cat 3 deal. You know, they had things, the way they laid out the campus, there were swells in big giant swells to take the water, that the water would all focus there. And that state or those industrial complexes down there are built, having a conversation with this gentleman afterwards, they're built for the hazard of windstorm down there. And we're learning it. We're not there. We're still putting this stuff out, right? And it's great stuff, but we've got a long way to go, which comes back. There's an effort now from the insurance perspective in the legislation to try to move, everybody's familiar with, you buy a homeowner's policy, you have an option to purchase earthquake insurance. It's kind of like an extra policy. Or some people are required by their bank because they're in a flood zone to buy flood insurance, right? Well, there's a movement out there now to make wildfire the same way, to take it out of the standard portion of the insurance portfolio. And you guys should be aware of that because people ask you questions. And that would not necessarily be a bad thing. That would probably be a good thing, because then you've got insurance companies that can come in and they target that. They can price for that, as opposed to everybody just getting glommed in and saying, well, I can't do your insurance because you're in a wildfire zone. If they could then buy Allstate would come back, State Farm would come back, and they'd say, hey, we're writing everything X wildfire, right? But then you could buy it with a larger deductible for your wildfire. So it all comes back to what Nadine was asking, like, let's take a look at some of the numbers. How effective are we getting? Are the efforts, like these efforts, making things better? It's not going to show up immediately, but over time it will. We need to. Florida is light years ahead of us in the way they build things and plan things.
Light years ahead of us in some respects and in the dark ages in others.
Right. Yeah, I'm not talking about their politics. I'm talking about their.
I've got a question though.
Yeah.
When it comes to earthquake, as an example, unpredictable, we can take some mitigation steps to harden our property and hopefully help it withstand an earthquake. Similar dynamics with wildfire, but yet different, because we're taking and expending a lot of resource and money in many communities, especially in Marin County, to draw down risk. Do you think there's a benefit to selling a separate policy that's specific to wildfire when we've already done everything we could to mitigate risk? So if you have a Firewise community, as an example, where they've demonstrated throughout the neighborhood, they're meeting standards. Well, is there really a need for a separate policy which add costs to the homeowner? I'm just curious.
Yeah, that's a great question. And it's a kind of a double-edged answer. The way it is now, everybody's being penalized because you've got all these carriers, Travelers, AIG, Nationwide, Liberty Mutual, that have exited the state. So they're all gone. So everybody's being penalized, and they haven't seen the fruits of the labor of Firewise yet. It hasn't proven to them. All they know is I lost a tremendous amount of money in that state, and for me to go back, something's got to change. And they've got to see a few years of our efforts pay off.
So I'm also curious, and I'm not asking you for this information, but I'm just curious. For say 70 years worth of policy where there was very few claims.
Yeah.
And a lot of premiums paid. What is the loss compared to the gain or the profit when now in a 5 or 10 year period, you've had to pay out a lot more claims than you've been accustomed to? Are they still on the upside substantially to the tunes of hundreds of millions of dollars, or are they now almost back to being in the red or something, which is causing them to pull out? It seems punitive. It's probably a polite way of putting it.
Yeah, and yeah, I hear you. It's just like, hey, you've made, and everybody says this, you've made X amount of money on my policy over the years. Why now am I getting canceled, or why are my rates going up now? And it's really comes back to that the concept of the impact on the profit associated with it, right? Nobody is making any money. The people that invest in insurance companies or property insurance companies, primarily reinsurance companies, the people that lay off the risk, like Travelers will take the first 50 million and then everything after that they give to reinsurers. nobody's putting any investment in reinsurance companies. They're called retrocessionaires. So they're not getting any money. So when they don't get money, the capacity shrinks. And they don't care how much money they've made or lost over the last 20 years. It's just supply and demand, right? My capacity is now down because nobody is investing in me. So when supply shrinks like that, the price goes up. And that's really, they're not looking at my profit, my
Historical numbers.
loss ratio over the last 10 years. The fact of the matter is, I can't get reinsurance right now. And so I'm going to dole it out very judiciously, and whoever's willing to pay gets it.
Yeah, so I think it's also a case that insurance companies like banks and most American corporations are not historically oriented in the sense that the focus is on the quarterly report
Yeah,
or
that's
what
exactly
have
right.
you. And so if it had been a case that the insurance companies had been building up a fund over 70 years, and now all of a sudden are facing a lot of big claims, be a different story. But they paid out to the shareholders 90% of what came in last year to keep the shareholders happy, and the executives that are getting big bonuses now come over the last, I would say over the last 10 years, we've had nationwide, but we've had just one after another major losses to hurricanes, to floods, to California fires, and what have you.
Well, yeah, they're bigger. What you're getting, they're bigger and stronger than ever, right? I mean,
Yeah.
like Ian that just hit Florida. That's $100 billion worth of insured losses. We've never had storms like that.
Yeah,
Losses on that scale.
Right.
Repeat.
yeah, and the insurance companies don't like everybody else, they don't want to be regulated. So there's no incentive and nothing that requires them to maintain growing reserves.
Well, no.
There is some of that.
It's a regulated
There
industry.
is, yeah.
And so we do have reserves. And so that's why they can't raise their rates fast enough to stay in the
replenish.
state. So they just leave.
Yeah.
So we'll see if that comes about. That's a long ways off, having a separate wildfire policy, but it's gonna get legs, because the cost of property insurance is gonna continue to drive for the next couple of years.
And my guess would be that it'll be very much like earthquake or flood insurance, which is to say, the premiums will be significant. The actual coverage will be, relatively minimal. I mean, I have flood
Yeah,
insurance,
that's right.
and it costs $1,500 a year, something like that, because I live on the water. But it covers with a substantial deductible only damage to the first floor, things like that. So, I mean, why do I have it? I mean, I keep thinking, there's sea level rise and all of that, and I'm thinking, well, $1,600 a year, I could put that to use someplace else. Yeah.
So anyway,
Okay.
I thought it was interesting, looking at a factory in Florida and the way they design
Thank you.
it.
Okay. Thank you, Ken. David.
No report other than to also say thank you very much, Larry, for your service to the city for so many years. It's really end of an era. I remember back to my early days appreciating all your photos, and I learned so much from just perusing your photo site, and that was such a wonderful way of learning. And then just the many insights, stories, experiences that you share with this group has really been very helpful for some of us who don't have that background or experience like you do. So thank you for everything. Really appreciate that.
Thank you. Stan.
Hello. Goodbye. Oh, no, not yet. I have two things. Oddly, one of them has to do with you, but not the first.
Oh,
February 21st, last month, there was a presentation to the San Rafael City Council. The shorthand for the presentation that came in from the city clerk
was an update on boards, commissions, and committees, loosely referred to as BCC. And all of the boards, all of the commissions, and all of the committees, how they are set up, how they will conduct business, anniversary dates for terming out, anniversary dates for anything relative to the given board, committee, or commission are all going to change. There's going to be a period of time where things get a little wonky to get to the end result. It is a report that's online. It was sent to probably all of us, and it is 36 pages long. Yes, I read it.
Did you comment on it?
Yes, I did comment on it.
Okay.
I've been in conversation several times with Lindsay on various points, but how appointments are made to a committee or commissioner, bureau, or board are looked at, adjustments to the calendar year, adjustments to the succession to a chair, which we may want to think about today when we get there. The recommendation, none of this is cut in stone yet, this is not recommendations. But the recommendations are that if the organization has a chair and a vice chair and a secretary and a treasurer and whatever, that there is a logical succession. And then behind that, a consideration of seniority.
Firefighters here.
As-
Wait outside.
as the process goes on. Anyway, I'm just saying that to all of you, if you haven't looked at it. It's not a great read, but it's a very interesting read, and it will come back to visit us. End of that.
It is in the, if I can comment on that, I don't know what your comment, Lindsay, was, but the section on succession in particular is self-contradictory.
Yes.
While I appreciate the city's desire to have one formula, one size fits all, my experience in the last 33-4 years in the city, serving on a lot of different committees and commissions and this, that, and the other thing, is that one size doesn't fit all.
Right.
And some of the committees and what have you that have that are mission oriented, they're established for a purpose that lasts for some finite period of time and then pretty much goes away, are very different than, for example, the library board or the fire commission or the planning commission. And that maybe the city should think about that before trying to create a single set of operating rules to govern everything. And for example, the rule on succession talks about the chair and vice chair being elected by the members. Well, that's fine,
Later
except
it says it,
that, yeah, what happened, then it all, in the very next paragraph, it talks about this sort of fixed succession, which really doesn't make any sense. I think it would make sense for the committees and commissions to do essentially what I think we have done in the past here and supposed to do, I think, today as well, and that is elect officers. Because it's, one of the things I pointed out to Lindsay is not everybody wants to be an officer of a board or commission. There are people who are very willing to put in their time and serve, but don't necessarily want to take on whatever additional responsibility might be involved. to be a chair or vice chair. So we'll see how that works out. And as you point out, it's not written in stone yet. It's still subject to public comment.
Right, one more thing I want to add, and this comes right offline, anybody can get it. And it's called Larry Luckham's resume. And I'm
Why is your
doing,
resume online?
I am doing
I had
this,
no idea.
Yeah.
I didn't know it was.
LinkedIn.
Ah!
You know, you can see.
LinkedIn, yeah.
I am doing this only to put it on the public record. So that those of us who know you know much of, if not all of this. But not everybody does and everybody should. So in reverse order, I think. We'll start briefly in 1960. He joined the Navy. Skipping ahead, the Navy lasted 3 years and 9 months. He went to Pacific Telephone and Telegraph, then to Bell Telephone. Was that a merge or a jump of companies?
No, Pacific Telephone and Telegraph, back in those days, was the primary, not the only, but the primary telephone company in California. And we also owned Nevada Bell. At the time, Al Boro was head of one group, and I worked with Al way back in those days. I was, at one point, I was a programmer, and then I was the operations manager in the data center.
Back, yes, that was a few weeks ago. That's back in those two started in 64 and went through 70. From Bell, he went to his own company, Luckham Company, his contractor, building, and still owns properties and operates them. And then to 2005, joined the fire department, is a fire commissioner. That's been 18 years in a position. I believe is the second longest, yours being the longest. And one, okay, then that said, and we know about, or we have heard about your interest in and accomplishments in investigation. So the list goes: wildfire origin case determination, wildfire behavior, serial arson, how to write reports, arrest, search and seizure, fire death investigation, marine fire, interview and interrogation, forensic vehicle fire, and then fire investigation 2B, 2A, 210, 1B, and 1A. Crime scene photography, criminal scene demography. Is that really? Criminal scene and forensic photography, and advanced explosive recognition. What do you do in your spare time?
Well,
That's the only time, that's all he had time for, aside from that, huh?
An amazing career. It's not over. Sitting in the chair maybe, but we look forward to seeing what's next with you. It has been a pleasure.
yeah, me too. I'm trying to figure out what to do next. Always trying to, I like to stay active. As
Yes.
I've been pestering the chief about various projects that I probably shouldn't be doing anyway, but
That won't stop you.
but that's how I became an investigator. Although I have to say, I didn't ask the chief to let me do that or get involved in any of the training. Training was interesting, and as was going out on calls and what have you. But let's move right on to Donna. Donna, do you have anything you want to
I do.
add? I'll bet you do.
I absolutely do. I'm going to tag team off of Nadine and say that I didn't know to wait to be invited, so I invited myself to lunch with Larry when I first got on the commission. And I'm sorry to say he did not teach me the difference between a fire truck and a fire engine. So I quietly looked it up on Google while you all were talking, and now I know. And I do think that the fire commission should follow in the path of universities and college and name him our professor emeritus or commissioner emeritus or something in that regard, because this man is a walking encyclopedia on fires, fire science, the department, the city, anything you want to know, all you have to do is ask Larry. And I am certain it is going to be a huge loss to the commission without his presence. So it's been a joy this first year, and I'm sorry I wasn't with you for a longer run, Larry.
Me too. Me too. Okay, anything else?
Yeah, you're right.
Okay, my turn, I guess. Well, I guess the first thing I'll start off with was saying, would be saying that service on the fire commission has been a singular honor for me. I enjoyed my time immensely, working with lots of really smart people. When I first applied, I was actually taking over the second half of someone else's four-year tour, who resigned for various reasons. And when I was being interviewed by the mayor and the council members, I'd already done a little bit of research on what the commission was doing and that sort of thing. And Al Bora was the mayor at the time, and I said, you know, if you're looking for somebody to be a fire commissioner to go to the monthly meetings, pick somebody else, because that's not me. If you decide that you want me as a commissioner, you can expect me to go to the fire department and find something to do, because I just need to get involved. And foolishly, they appointed me anyway. And so I pretty much did exactly what I said I was going to do. The first thing was getting a pager issued and starting to go out to fires just to do some photography, to photograph the crews at their business end for partly historical reasons. But one of the things I discovered was that I was doing a lot of photos, which the crews usually don't have time to do. Frequently, the incident commander or maybe an engineer will fire off a photo or two, but I was there with nothing else to do but take photos. And pretty soon, incident commanders would come along and say, could we get those for the after action report? And the next thing I knew, I was feeding those things up, putting them up on a website, which was the fastest thing that I can do. And as they say, the rest is history. And the other thing that happened was that our investigator at the time, Brad Mark, was out there with the department's little point and shoot camera. And he saw me with fancy cameras, and he would say, can you do real close-ups and what have you? Sure, I can do that. And after working with Brad for a bit on various fires, I realized I have to come to him and ask, or wait for him to ask for specific things. Maybe I should go learn something about this so that I can work independently to support him. And that started the list of classes that Sam was just reading. Many classes. And fire science, fire investigation, forensic photography, vehicle fires, fire deaths, that sort of thing. And from then on, I was going out on all first alarms in San Rafael, not just to take pictures of the suppression, but also to do the investigations. And you know, I have to say, I've worked with some of the finest people could ever imagine. And so it's been an honor to be able to do it. And then I'll explain the jumpsuit here, which some of you have seen and some of you haven't. In 2016, I hijacked a ride with some of our firefighters heading down to Peru and Guatemala to do a month's worth of training as part of Firefighters Without Borders, which is an organization that originated in Canada. And Angel Landaverde in our department got involved and created a chapter in San Rafael. And the deployment in 2016, I kind of talked my way into it. And the time spent in Peru was pretty much organized by two young firefighters, young couple. This is an all-volunteer organization. They did a fantastic job on the logistics and, getting us training facilities and places to stay and this, that, and the other thing. And I was so impressed with them that the year later, I flew them up to spend a couple of weeks with the department here. They stayed with us while they were there. But one of the things that I had commented on while I was in Peru was their station uniforms, which are these jumpsuits, and I thought those are pretty slick. And lo and behold, when they came up, they brought this. So, and otherwise, I don't get a chance to wear it. So, what the heck? I figured might as well do it today. Boy, I don't know what else to say. It's been a great ride, and I appreciate the support from all of you and from the department. And I hope we get another appointee that's enthusiastic about the fire service and public service in general in San Rafael. And I still have one appointment, and that is I'm on the oversight committee for Vera. At least for another couple of years. But I'm not going away. That's all I got.
Could hold an election.
Yes, I think we need to talk about the position that I'm about to vacate. Anybody have a motion, a suggestion, a nomination?
I have a nomination.
Stan is recognized.
She's on the screen.
Oh, the one on the screen up there?
Mm-hmm.
So Nadine, you've been nominated to take the chair. Are you willing to do that?
I am, yes.
Well, I propose that we have a vote that Nadine be nominated chair to replace me. Am I seconded? All in favor? Aye. Welcome, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Quite an honor. Thank you.
Now, the next order of business, since you'll be vacating the vice chair. Does anybody want to volunteer a nomination for the vice chair position? Okay.
You want to do it, Stan?
I
can't do it.
no, you can make it.
Well, I'll nominate Stan,
There you go. That's what we needed.
but I didn't want to do it unless he wanted to do it.
I'd be happy to.
Okay, unless someone else, I mean,
Okay, so Stan has been nominated to take the vice chair seat. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second. All in favor? Aye. Welcome, Vice Chair Buford. Thank you. Okay, now we have a new set of officers. And I'm going to turn the meeting over to the chief.
All right, well, in the interest of brevity, I'm gonna skim through this report because we had a bunch of individuals who are out waiting to come in and see you. I don't want to belabor this any longer than I have to, so I'm gonna go to the highlights of the report. And I'll start with, we had the services for retired battalion chief Paul Crimmins on February 20th at the Marinwood Community Center. It was well attended. We had individuals ranging from Councilmember Eli Hill to Dr. Mizrock, Stan. We had State Senator Damon Connolly was, or excuse me, State Assembly member Damon Connolly was there. And a lot of retirees and others who had worked with or for Paul during some point in their careers, individuals who have been mentored by him, extended family, and it was a well-attended event and really gave us some more insight into who Paul was as a father, a husband, a coworker, a professional, a martial artist, which I had no idea, and more. So that being said, so it was a great opportunity to learn a lot about a really great man who left us too soon. So the celebration of life though was a great event. I think his family received it well. So thank you all for your contributions, your thoughts and prayers. And, you know, we hope moving forward that Paul's family will find comfort in the days ahead. So we had a situation here at City Hall just about 10 days ago or so. And Chief Senate had to don level, I'll call it level D protection. But apparently there was a fire alarm in the basement where there was some asbestos removal taking place. And crews could not get inside. The direction that he was trying to provide to the individuals who were down there to reset the alarm panel, they were not quite understanding what Chief Senate was trying to convey. So he said, you know what, I'll take care of it. And being Chief Senate as he always is, he quickly donned a respirator and a level D suit, I'll call it, and went on in and mitigated the alarm to everyone's happiness. And so just, I thought that was a great opportunity to show Chief Senate, because it's very rare opportunities to show Chief Senate for the things that he does for the organization. He puts out the hotshot, news, and does so much more for our organization. So I just thought you guys would get a kick out of seeing that one.
Absolutely. I wish I had been there.
Oh, yeah. Stations 54 and 55. We thought we were moving into Station 55 this past Monday, only to discover there's some significant issues with a company that was slated to take care of our communication system, Comtech. Given that dynamic, there's been a quick pivot away from that company and or their capability, as they may have just gone defunct and or bankrupt without even communicating to our staff. So we're looking at a quick fix of taking the comm system that's in place currently in the temporary facility that's right next door and moving that into the building for a short-term solution so our personnel can get back to operating out of a facility that's not a temporary facility. Very troubling situation, obviously, but no one foresaw it coming. But apparently the staff that they were able to get a hold of confirmed that all employees have been released and this thing just went defunct suddenly. Even despite the fact that they may have taken a check recently from someone in Santa Rosa to the tune of tens of thousands of dollars, knowing full well that they weren't going to be providing any service. So more to follow on that one day. I don't know when, but one day. Station 55, the work's still progressing, but we're seeing some residual work that still needs to take place, some punch list items. And our hope is sometime in April that will be ready without any significant challenges. I don't know that Comtech was responsible for Station 54. We'll see. We know certainly they're responsible for 55. So whatever's happening with 55, well, I'm sure somehow or another segue into some other individual being selected or finishing up the work that needs to be done at Station 55 from a communication standpoint. Just unbelievable. So anyway, COVID, I think Commissioner Weathers, you spoke to it, and it's still here and it's present. 3 years ago, in 2020, around this time, an estimated 2,200 people were dying. I'm sorry, that's each day. The following year, in 2021, that number increased from 2,200 to roughly 3,300 with the rise of some of the rate of infection. Then with Omicron taking place, that kept the numbers high. Now, fortunately, we're down to around 340 deaths per day in the US. And so clearly roughly a 90% drop from where we were at our peak. I'm not sure, I haven't heard a lot about variants, recently. It's not a lot of information about COVID, except what you may read in some periodical or in the newspaper from time to time. So I'm not sure if that's necessarily a good thing. I'm sure hoping it is. I'm hoping this kind of trails off the way the Spanish flu did, some 100 years ago, but more to follow, I'm sure. But the fact of the matter is, it's still a deadly disease and it's still there. It's just not taking as many people as it was early on. And I don't know if that's herd immunity. That's the fact that everyone, or a great majority of people, especially in our county, got vaccination and booster. If it's because the type of COVID that people are being infected with is highly infectious, but not as severe. Could be all of the above. But that being said, I'll start winding down my reports on COVID because it's not the factor that it once was. And I don't know that you guys want to continue to hear about that moving forward. And there's just not as much information as there used to be either. So, so with that, last but not least, the Marin Wildfire Prevention Authority had a meeting this morning with the Ops Committee. Projects that had a JPA-wide nexus were being presented at the meeting today. There was no formal vote. It was more of an information and question and answer session. And some of those projects I'll share in the next report. But there is evacuation route projects underway. And that's in the Dominican, Terralinda, and Lincoln Hill areas. The recent board actions include approval of a conflict of interest amendment and approval of rental office space for expanding the Defensible Space Inspector Consortium. So, and then last but not least, the planning process for 2023-24 is underway and on schedule. They'll probably bring the projects and the total budget and all the information forward to the board in May with a June approval date, hopefully. And so far, so good. The last 3 years, we've been able to get approval, and that's the other thing. We're already entering the 4th year of MWPA. Can you believe that? Yeah. So it's actually, really taking root. I think the projects that we continue to see are building on the successes we had, whether it's using the house out approach, whether it's working out in the open space areas, whether it's creating shaded fuel breaks, working on our fire roads, working on just so many different projects that, in my opinion, continue to substantially draw down risk within the Marin County community. And so more to follow on that. I think when the evacuation study and some of the other studies are complete and you see some of these other projects and start to see the progression of those projects, it'll be optically easy to see and recognize that things are changing and transforming before your eyes. But last but not least on that, inspections. Inspections have ramped up, and I think I saw a stat the other night at the council, city council presentation that was done by our staff. It was an excellent presentation, by the way. Quinn, Kate Anderson, and Manny Albano just really outlined in totality a lot of the great work that's been done in San Rafael. 27,000 inspections just in the last 2 years alone. Compliance rates have gotten somewhere between 85 to 90%. The challenges we have are just with several hundred folks, and we're still working to issue pre-notices, pre-citation, and or actual citations. And right at this point, there's only going to need to issue 19 citations. And we're hoping that some of those individuals will course correct as they see that we're still trying to work with them to help draw down risk in their neighborhoods and in their on their properties. So, but there's always the outliers, but not very many. So that's a great thing. So with that, I want to conclude my report, and then in the conclusion of my report, I want to just offer some statements of appreciation for you. And then, if you don't mind, I'd like to call in those individuals who've been waiting, just for a few moments to celebrate you and what you've done for us. When I first came to San Rafael, I had a few individuals reach out to me right away early on. Paul Crimmins, Dr. Mizrock, Larry Luckham, and a couple other individuals. And so I have to say, Larry, you invited me over to talk one day to kind of reorient me and provide me with some very much needed perspective on my role in the organization, what the troops needed, what I could possibly do to improve to ensure that I had a pretty good rapport going with the troops, because there was the troops here, there was the decisions I made there, And I think somewhere in the middle, we were kind of still filling each other out. And so Larry provided some very helpful advice, and I will always remember and appreciate that. So thank you so much.
I appreciated your time very much.
Absolutely, absolutely. From a historical perspective, clearly you bring something that not very many other people can bring in the way of photographs and or perspective and information that documents the long and inspiring history of this department. And so we're coming up on our 150th anniversary. I'm going to be relying on you and Dr. Mizrock and others to help formulate what we want to put in that yearbook and what we want to reveal to the public about this department. And so you're going to be hearing from us over the next several months, probably at least a year. Please feel free to share what you can and what you're able to. But we really appreciate you being accessible. We appreciate you just being selfless and so committed to helping the department in the manner that you have. And so with that, I'm going to call everyone in, and I got something I'd like to share.
Okay.
All right. Be right back.
Keep it.
Well, it's empty.
It's empty?
Yeah.
Mine's empty?
Yeah.
You're kidding, it's brand new.
He's vice chair.
I don't-
Carry-
And I was gonna share my secret with you, and it's to wait and not take notes and just use the recording later.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing to watch everybody say.
Yeah, that was great.
I don't know if it's on the recording or not.
Yeah,
And you can send it out to.
The first time I took notes, that didn't work,
Like that.
Oh,
like during COVID, and so I'm nervous about it. That's why I take copious notes, but
got it.
That
Thanks.
little icon that comes up here, that indicates.
It makes you really think about what you're saying when you see it
That indicates there's.
coming up and on the big screen.
Am I the only person
You're
that's
working.
showing all this large?
Traffic fire.
You?
Traffic.
The other person that what?
Can you just see me on this big screen? Oh,
because we got a picture of us.
Donna's on the phone and you're the only one.
I didn't get offered one.
You didn't, but I brought him up the following year.
Oh, you did?
I didn't know. Hey, how's it going?
aw.
I know,
Yes, indeed. No, I like their, I really like their. I know, when we were there, like. And when I brought them up the next year, they remembered, and they actually got one that. Yeah, that's true.
Oh, really?
Yeah. He broke up though, right? And he got married.
Oh, he did.
Good. They're both.
Yeah.
I'm glad you have that. Yeah. Yes. Really good. What's up, Nadine?
Say hello to the super be chairperson.
Hi, everyone. I miss you all. Sorry I can't be there in person.
As he is, as soon as this meeting ends.
Those are.
Okay, well, I know you guys have been waiting for the last half hour or more. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. I took a moment to share with Larry just some of my own personal appreciation for the things he's done for not just me, but for the organization, for the commission. But I want to say it openly in front of the rest of the members, if you don't mind that. Okay, all right. I was explaining that when I first joined the organization almost 3 years ago, there were a select few individuals who reached out to me, early on, and I didn't know who they were, but they were kind enough and gracious enough to reach out to me. That included Dr. Mizrock, Chief Crimmins, Larry Luckham, and others. And so over the course of time, I got a chance to see just how dedicated they were to the betterment of the San Rafael Fire Department, but also very just committed to the community in general, committed to the fire service. They have a passion and a love for the department and for the profession. So I've never seen and experienced that before, because where I came from, there was no fire commission. Every time we heard of commission, we always thought of a regulatory board or someone that really was there to kind of just hover over you and keep an eye on things and make sure things were going properly. Not understanding the immense value and support that the fire commissioners provided here. And so it's just very rewarding and inspiring to learn that it wasn't what I thought it was. But that being said, Larry also reached out to me when I was going through some challenging periods here as well, provided me with some insight and some perspective on what the members needed and what he saw in me as a chief, but what he thought maybe was not occurring, where maybe I was here and the members were, a little bit further apart, and we were trying to meet somewhere in the middle to help see and understand one another, and the members could understand who I was and what I represent as the chief of the organization, but as an individual as well. So I appreciated those conversations and I took them to heart, and I never had anyone really step outside of their comfort zone to share with me in that way. And so I'll never forget, but I always appreciate Larry's willingness to do that. And so before I go any further on that, I have a proclamation that's been drafted that I'm going to send actually, I've already sent it to Lindsay, but we're going to present this again on the next city council meeting on March 20th. I hope you're available. That being said, Mayor Kate will more than likely do the honors of reading, but I certainly will be present. And this is just a testament to just some of the surface things that Larry's been involved in. I couldn't capture all of it in a proclamation, because if I tried to, it was going to take 3, 4, 5 pages easy. Stan read something earlier to us that really showed his resume, and it was just impressive, the list of things that Larry's been involved in, the number of classes he's taken, the depth of it was just like, wow. And so the joke was, what don't you do? I mean, really, he's an amazing person. So with that, City of San Rafael proclamation presented to Lawrence Larry Luckham. Whereas Larry Luckham has served as both a member and during the last year, chairperson of the San Rafael Fire Commission. And whereas during his nearly 20 years of service on the Fire Commission, the San Rafael and adjacent communities have benefited tremendously from his volunteer efforts, fire investigation training and experience, and countywide partnerships with many public safety professionals, numerous committees, and working groups. And whereas Larry Luckham has contributed countless hours of volunteer time to improve the San Rafael Fire Department, document its history through film and photography as Photo 50, and his commitment to assisting the department with its growth and experience. And whereas Larry Luckham has served as a longtime member of the San Rafael Fire Commission and is a strong advocate of both community and firefighter safety through training, familiarization, and preparedness. And whereas in recognition of his insurmountable experience and dedication to the San Rafael Fire Commission, we honor Larry Luckham, the Fire Commissioner, emeritus status. So I'm not going to say I'm Kate Collin or read the rest. I'm not. But that being said, we thank you very much for your service.
Photo 50 is taken over.
Far from it.
Well, guys, it's been an honor. Some of the best times of my life have been running calls with you guys. I'm out of words. Sorry.
That's the first time.